we're going to have the transfer of value from those who don't want to hold the token, who don't want to participate, to those who do. Now, this is mechanism design, and this is built into the network, and it's a core design where it aligns the incentives and you're able to earn by participating, because the blockchain will not have value and the network will not have value unless you have a community to participate. And that's something that this community really needs to understand well. I've been here for over 2 years and researching Flare before Flare even announced that they were Flare, and interviewed Hugo with Brad Kimes, knowing who has spent the time to understand this and research this. I'm not here for hype. This is just straight facts. Yeah. You need to understand the facts, because a lot of people put out opinions, and speculation I think is good. It's healthy, but if it's based on facts. You're going to be millionaires going to the moon. No, I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything or hype anything. I'm telling you, this is what they're building. This is how they're doing it. This is why they're doing it. This is the vision that they're putting forth for the community. There's going to be people who have no idea the opportunity and they want to sell. That's fine. Go. But you're not going to stay here for 3 years and you're going to sell that and hurt us. That's not going to happen.
For a very, very long time. We're not just distributing to a few people. Then you think that there may be between, 3.5 and 7 million potential token holders. So it's a potentially a really large distribution, and whereby we probably are one of the most publicized launches probably ever, with one of the largest user bases probably ever, being highly decentralized and having an extremely wide token distribution. But we also need to make sure that it goes extremely smoothly, because we have, as a community and as a development house, we have this amazing opportunity. And the opportunity is that we can create one of the largest networks that's ever been built. But in order to do that, it has to be stable, it has to be secure, it has to be perfect.
We can have a fast launch with, suddenly this wall of applications coming to the network, large amounts of transactions coming to the network. And so everything is just 10 times, 100 times bigger than our expectations when we started this out.
Absolutely everything else that we're building follows from this set of things. An L1 with the EVM, the FTSO, and the state connector. And it's fast.
Somebody says there's this kind of universal connector, this universal API.
If you look at Flare standing back, it's just this network that can come to consensus over the state of other blockchains. And I think insurance is probably one of the biggest applications of that. And you can almost picture Flare as an insurance protocol for blockchain. It's just that insurance is being used. We didn't want to just build a blockchain that was trying to compete with other layer 1 blockchains. We wanted to build a blockchain that serves as many blockchains as possible because it has really great utility.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I see in the design as well.
Welcome to the DeFi Standard, and this is Mickey B. Fresh. So we're going to talk about mechanism design and why that is at the core of what Flare Networks has been designing for the past 5 years. Economists have spent decades thinking about the design of markets and incentives, and this work has found new applications in the digital economy. Professor Susan Athey of Stanford University and Ripple board member. And I'll play the video here of Susan Athey talking about Codius and how she talks about derivatives. And derivatives are all based on data. You need to have the data of the price feeds to be able to create the derivative products.
So like the Codius platform would allow you to write a program, and it'll make it easy for people to verify the program works, that would say, if these 5 things happen, then this person gets paid. If these other 3 things happen, this other person gets paid. So we could just, for example, you could think about some sort of complex financial derivative. We could take as an input the Bloomberg feed of stock prices, and we could make very complex bets about, well, if this stock goes up and this stock goes down and this other thing happens and the National Weather Service says it's sunny today, then this person gets paid. And if these other things happen, someone else gets paid. So that's going to really reduce the barriers to entry for creating financial derivative products, and it's going to allow more people to hedge more complicated situations where there's not enough people right now to make the market worthwhile to create the asset and have it verified.
So when we say that derivatives are going to come to crypto, they're going to come on chain. So if they're going to come on chain, you need actual data brought on chain from the outside world if the derivatives are from the outside world. Mostly what we've seen up to this date has been on-chain data. Price feeds that the FTSO bring in are not on-chain data. Exchanges trade off-chain in their own siloed databases, and they're not on-chain. They have really nothing to do with blockchain. We do have more DEXs, and we have more and more order book DEXs are coming along. But mechanism design, this concept is at the core of what crypto economics is. So what is crypto economics? These are important things to know, to understand what is being built and why certain features are implemented into the design of like the Flare networks, for example. You should have. The study of how we use digital incentivization to drive specific resources and behaviors amongst self-interested agents on decentralized networks, thereby inherently delivering security and accelerating network effects. Tokens act like rocket fuel for network effects. When designed correctly, tokens can not only drive certain desired behaviors, but they can accelerate them quite dramatically. The game theory is just the study of mathematical models of conflict and cooperation between intelligent, rational decision makers. Game theory is mainly used in economics, political science, psychology, as well in logic and computer science. Originally, it stressed zero-sum games, in which one person's gain results in losses for other participants. Today, game theory applies to a new range of behavioral relations and is now an umbrella term, for the science of logical decision-making in humans, animals, and computers. Now, what's a zero-sum game? Was the FTSOs, when only certain FTSOs could get more rewards. That means there was less for everyone else. And they're all producing good data. Is there a sense of a better data? Like, you want to make sure everyone has an incentive to provide good data, but is there a real best? There's not a real best. So that was something they didn't prioritize early on because the focus was on the best data, making sure it was the best. And we've achieved that. So now this is why. So what you will see is a flattening out of reward rates.
Very clear that the team, you guys have really thought deeply about network incentives. Every process, every protocol for data provisioning, first of all, is decentralized and it's rewarded. So even governance on Songbird, for example, for FIP, has incentives and game theory built in. I'd like to hear, more broadly, Hugo, like, to what extent has the team thought about embedding incentives into the network?
I mean, that's really been the whole protocol design. We spent a huge amount of time, and now we've had time with Songbird to understand how people act, in reality, not just under some kind of academic assumptions. And it's been a fantastic process for us to observe how people act and where essentially there might be ways to improve the way incentive mechanisms work. So for instance, with the FTSO itself,
we're looking for ways, and I believe a governance proposal will be delivered on Songbird to make participating as an FTSO easier, such that the reward band is somewhat relaxed, such that the earnings of FTSOs are more equal. At the moment, it's a very much a winner-take-all scenario, and that's great. But it can incentivize nefariousness. Again, that nefariousness has never gotten to a level that has in any way threatened the Oracle itself. But we want to make sure that those incentives are removed as we move forward.
Yeah, agree. And, the FTSO was built and designed for decentralized prices. And at the moment on Songbird, it's doing exactly that. And so I think also agree with you, relaxing the reward band would, achieve its aim still. So no, I agree with you there.
Governance and designing networks is an ongoing process. There is no complete and finished. I get that people want that and they like that feeling of, they built this works, that's it, it's done. It's not like that. These are evolving networks. Society evolves. It's an evolution. The network is like a living organism in that it's made of ecology. It's made of like a bunch of different decentralized agents that all act in different ways and then drive the network. So design the game, but once deployed, the game is fixed. And this is important. Not completely fixed, I say, because governance allows for the creation of additional mechanism designs, especially on Flare. So mechanism design is a field in economics and game theory that takes an engineering approach to designing economic mechanisms or incentives towards desired objectives in strategic settings where players act rationally because it starts at the end of the game and then goes backwards. It also called reverse game theory. It has broad applications from economics and politics, markets, auctions, voting procedures, to network systems like the internet interdomain routing, and search auctions.
Game theory is the study of the strategic interaction between adaptive agents and the dynamics of cooperation and competition that emerge out of this. A much more recent extension of this is mechanism design. Mechanism design is a field in economics and game theory that takes an engineering approach to designing economic incentives toward desired objectives in strategic settings. Because it starts at the end of the game, then goes backward, it is also called reverse game theory. It has broad applications in the management of markets, auctions, voting procedures, and is of particular relevance to token economics. As an economic theory that seeks to determine the situations in which a particular strategy or mechanism will work efficiently, compared to situations in which the same strategy will not work as effectively, mechanism design theory allows economists to analyze and compare the way in which markets or institutions lead to certain outcomes because of their inherent incentive structures. With mechanism design, we are trying to design the system towards a certain desired equilibrium state. With this approach, we first think about what outcome we would like to see from the system. We can then build a set of rules that will hopefully lead to those optimal outcomes. Legal systems are a kind of mechanism, as they are a method for shaping human behavior. A particular set of laws is usually trying to shape a particular type of outcome through the imposition of a set of penalties, fines, rewards, or incentives, such as tax breaks, etc. Of course, these existing systems are centralized in their design, but with token networks, we are looking for a mechanism design that does not depend upon a centralized authority specifying and enforcing the rules, but instead some kind of peer-to-peer value exchange mechanism that is self-regulating through direct information feedback loops. As previously mentioned, coordination within distributed systems, like token economies, is not achieved via centralized coordination, but instead by the interaction between members and the incentive structures created by the exchange of tokens. The primary dynamic for us to consider, then, is that of the feedback loops that are created out of people interacting peer-to-peer. Creating optimal outcomes for the whole system means effectively linking the payoffs of the individual to those of the whole system, and thus reducing negative externalities. Every action that an agent takes has an effect, and we can ask what are the repercussions of those actions, and who bears the costs and benefits. When an actor gains from an action, but the costs are borne by others, this is a negative externality.
A crypto-economic protocol consists of 3 states, and we can compare this to exactly what happened with Flare. Now, as you could see on the screen, and the number 1, and they have a nice little even diagram here too. An agent commits to the fulfillment of a specification. The agent, and then 2, the agent executes an action that it either evaluates to true or false. So what would be the commit here? You would have to, there could be 2 applications for this. You could either say they're going to wrap their token to fulfill that specification, and therefore it's true. And 3, the protocol is concluded by rewarding or punishing the agent. So 3 would be they're rewarded. Now for the FTSOs, you could say, well, if they delegate to the FTSOs, they then committed to that, and then the protocol rewards them. Those who do not get punished by not receiving any with the inflation. Now, FIP 01 has significantly lower inflation. That's a huge part of the design difference. And that seems to not get much attention, but it is what it is. There's no point in arguing, could there be a third proposal? And these are the 2 proposals we go with. And the designers of the network for 5 years have built this from the beginning to the end. They have the most experience and knowledge with it. To perform the desired action, which results in utility, or an undesired action, which results in equivalent of negative utility. In this simplified figure, there are 3 layers. So Flare, from day 1, has said the Flare Oracle acts as an inflation mechanism for the network, increasing the FLR's token supply and rewarding FLR token holders who provide good estimates to the FTSO. In this sense, it is the equivalent of mining. Furthermore, it acts as an economical incentive for Flare token holders to act honestly. So by you delegating to the FTSOs, you're bringing value and utility to the network. Therefore, you earned a reward. You just don't get rewards because you bought something before other people and some government's going to buy it back. That is not the logic, okay? This is like a science here in a way of behaviors. And crucially, it transfers value from people who do not participate in the system or who participate in a malicious fashion to people who provide utility to the network. FIP 01 does exactly that. To wrap your token, you would have to come onto the network. The more users that are actively delegating to FTSOs, the better. It means engagement. And why is this better than just straight proof of stake? Because you don't sacrifice the opportunity cost of using the value of the token. Earn FTSO rewards, monthly distribution rewards, have governance rights, and then utilize the token value as collateral in either the F-asset system or other applications on the network. So that's 4 utilities. It's to incentivize a data provisioning network. Flare has 80 oracles at its core who are run by independent entities from everybody, from just everyday Joe Schmo, everyday people, to DApp projects, to NFT projects, to people like me who just are content providers and want to educate the community and have a following just to support the network. So we have this diverse set, and we have a number of institutional FTSOs. Then we'll have some exchanges that will also run them, or they'll delegate to other FTSOs. We'll see aggregation of this, and we haven't even seen the full anywhere near what this is going to look like. This is going to be far, far bigger than right now with the FTSO. Because 1, it doesn't have the other voters. So who are the other voters? the F assets. Anyone who holds F assets is a voter in the FTSO system. That's there to balance the weight of the vote power. That's going to be implemented. Then you're going to add a governance proposal for staking to earn validator rewards. This will create a dynamic to where everyone's able to bring value and utility to the network and then earn these inflation rewards and distribution rewards. So for 36 months, this distribution will come out as part of the total supply. And as David Schwartz actually stated, there's these people who will get Flare and say, oh, what's this Flare thing? I don't know that. And he says from his experience, he's noticed that XRP or tokens in general tend to move from people who don't want the token or don't see long-term value in it to those who do see long-term value in it. But it's more than just seeing long-term value in it. Having incentives there aligns the interest. Flare is fundamentally trying to change the method of how bridging is done. Instead of issuing just a one-to-one, trying to lock it on one network and issue it on the other, that provides really no business model. Okay, they earn some fees. That's about it. Who do you have now to secure that? We've come up with optimistic situations, these watchers and all different types of design. Those work really well in systems that all share the same protocol. So like Cosmos within the Cosmos ecosystem with IBC, Polkadot with their XMC or XCM protocol for messaging. But that does not work when you go across chain, which is the hardest thing to do. You basically need to have act like a bank. So how do you create like a bank, but keep it in a decentralized way? Well, you bring in sophisticated institutional entities who can manage the collateral. So instead of it being one-to-one issued, you over-collateralize it and you provide additional safety to avoid the risks of reorganization attacks during the time period of a day, 2 days, 3 days, depending on the networks it's going from, of when a reorganization attack can occur.
Technology first, of course, but provide a level of, I guess, allow for very sophisticated financial partners to come in and provide insurance at the protocol level. So this is kind of like taking an idea from traditional finance, insurance, and bringing it into the decentralized space by allowing that insurance to operate at the smart contract level. I don't think it's not particularly, revolutionary. There are decentralized insurance models out there, but not for bridges, not for cross-chain activity. And we think that bridges and cross-chain activity are probably some of the riskiest areas in the space. And we really want to try and make that substantially better going forward. And so, the roles in those protocols are very much around making sure the bridge is trustless, making sure that if you're moving your asset between one chain or another, that there's no centralized intermediary in the middle. But doing that safely with insurance, it doesn't matter that the insurance is provided by a centralized party. Anyone could provide it. It doesn't matter even if that insurance is provided by one party, because the protocols keep it trustless, because the insurance funds are held on chain. So this is a really nice hybrid between, super decentralization and essentially providing a role for traditional financial entities to get involved in a decentralized mechanism.
So that's where the additional collateral is provided. But after it goes over the bridge, now that one smart contract can be, it's what it is, it's a smart contract issued then on any other network. It's one contract. So the same Ethereum that's issued on Solana is the same that's on Flare. And this is all built into the dApp ecosystem. So Flare built basically like an SDK backend tech stack that includes a proof system for applications to create cross-chain dApps. What does that mean? This definitely has not been understood by the community. You don't really need to understand it. Just please understand the magnitude of what it means to accomplish that in the industry. That is the holy grail, and the completely untapped market is providing an insurance type of utility of cross-chain applications and users using them. Because if we don't, there won't be cross-chain dApps, and there'll be siloed ecosystems. No network is going to succeed in a siloed ecosystem. Flare was initially built to be a sidechain for the XRP Ledger, meaning that as AI gets bigger and bigger, they just don't become autonomous agents that just operated based on the data and makes a decision based on that, being trained on machine learning. That's where this is going. You need to understand that where we are now and look ahead a year or two. Because if you don't, or if you look back, which is even worse, people do, you're not going to really see what the potential is in something. And short-term price and things like that don't really mean much when you first launch the blockchain. It's kind of irrelevant. Now, the opportunity here is, not financial advice, is to accumulate. We're in a bear market. We're in the depths of it. Now, incentives don't work as much in these type of markets. But knowing that these things are being built out, this is where the utility is for Flare. So mechanism design is a field in economics. That mechanism design is what allows for the reverse game theory. So you're providing these delegations to earn FTSO rewards. So there's FTSO rewards and there's distribution. The token needs to be distributed. So Songbird was distributed all at once, but it wasn't really. There's no more coming, but it wasn't really distributed all at once. It was distributed gradually over time, in months. What was the result of that?
So Songbird first, testing will inform whether there needs to be changes made, whether we need to go, change anything in the design, change anything in the code, change anything in the way the economics works. I'm very interested when it comes to Songbird of the effect of, in the next couple of, months, there's going to be probably exchanges distributing the token in a sequential manner. And actually, that'll be quite interesting because there's a very high reward right now for delegating to the FTSO on Songbird, because at the moment, less than only 15% is a huge number for 5 weeks, but it's also a small number in the long run. Only 15% of the token holders have delegated to the FTSO, which means that 100% of the rewards are going to 15% of the token holders. So as the token comes to market, I want to see what happens, because actually the situation with Songbird right now is very closely mirroring what we want to do in the future with the Flare distribution, which is 15% on day one and then 3% thereafter. Mm-hmm. With the idea being that if there should be an absorption of liquidity over time, because if you only distribute a small amount on day one, then the return from the protocols very, very high. So I want to see how people respond to that, because right now the return from the FTSO is extremely high. As more supply comes to market, theoretically, people should be, very interested in absorbing the liquidity so as to get that return. So we'll see if that's borne out. And then that can also provide some very interesting, essentially case studies for the economics of FLR and whether, the community may wish to change the structure of the distribution. So I think that's a really important thing to note. Distribution. So I think that community may wish to change the structure of the distribution. So I think that's a really important thing to note.
Well, I appreciate your transparency there and candidness. I certainly understand, from the building standpoint, there's a lot of responsibilities on your end, and you want to put out a product that works and doesn't have risks, which would obviously be a bigger problem for everybody. So I think certainly folks have to be patient, and thank you for explaining all the things that you guys are working on. So
the result was it kept going into the hands of many people. Like David Schwartz said, that what's this Flare thing? I don't know, a Songbird thing. I don't know. It's free money. Now I have more money than I used to, so I sell it. But at the same time, the participation rate gradually climbed from 15% to 60%, but the price plummeted. So now we see a divergence in the price action from the participation. And what was the cause of the price divergence? The negative externalities of those who received the token who had no desire to participate. So if we continuously did that every month for 36 months, that's exactly what you would see every month. So why in the hell would you do that when you could direct those rewards to the people that, but that's what it's doing. It's taking the distribution and just giving it the same amount comes out every month in FIP01 and the original. So why would we take the distribution and then go and give it to the same people who we just witnessed kept putting pressure on the price, but at the same time, the participation rate went up. Now, if the participation rate didn't go up and the price went down, that would say there's not a lot of interest from the community. But that's not the case. The participation went up to 60%. It's actually very impressive for Canary Network that is in the top 200, by the way. Just so everyone knows, Songbird's a Canary Network in the top 200. And you have a second network now. This is the institutional platform for Flare. That's what it is. So understanding that is very important. Flare is going for one specific focus. It's a big focus, but they're not trying to do everything. Now, scale-wise, they could scale horizontally with computation across to Songbird and across to other networks or other Flare networks or Algorand that have their own state connector. Because the state connector is what allows Flare to observe all these other networks and come to consensus on what happened on them. And now by having a client side that can be created by anybody, it allows it to scale up to many networks. But it also goes further than that. It takes Web 2 data and provides it into Web 3 networks. So, for example, you have a token in this metaverse, and for some activities that were done on Twitter because you did and tweeted out X amount of things or had X amount of followers or likes or whatever it is. As an example, it's something happened on Twitter where it has a metric that could be read. That metric then triggers a execution of a contract in a Web3 metaverse. That is revolutionary. That is going to be really cool. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's like, could you imagine Twitter when Twitter was, before Twitter even occurred, and Facebook and MySpace and all those things? No, but you can understand that, hey, there could be some social media site where people could gather on and they could probably talk about different things they like. That's what you would say then, but you can never fathom what this is. So you'll never be able to fathom what that is. But this all happens. There's no regulations that are going to impact things like that. They're just going to happen. So regulatory clarity has a huge impact on certain aspects of the market industry, but it doesn't in fact impact the innovation like at the primitive phase where they're coming up with these new primitives. And FLR's use case is as collateral. It's premium collateral. Why is that? Because it can be used simultaneously as collateral and earn a reward. But it's more so that it can be waiting to be used as collateral and earn a reward. So it doesn't sacrifice the opportunity cost. And over time, if more people are coming into the ecosystem, the value, it won't moon in the same way because you're distributing this token out. But that's a process for a long-term life cycle of a network. Understanding that. The inflation rate itself is actually declining at a pretty significant rate. Next year, it goes down to 7%, and it goes down from there. But now, and the distribution ends. So by that point, you have a built-out ecosystem. And Flare and the foundation and the VC fund and the partners, anyone getting tokens besides like the Flare team members and the advisors, every other entity, like the foundation, that VC fund, the partners, they're receiving those tokens because they're going to do things that directly benefit the network and have a direct impact. And how do we know that the VC fund and things like that worked? Because we witnessed Avalanche did that. It just exploded the ecosystem when they did that. But you have to time it right in just the right way so that it's done when we see the market surges. We're at a point right now where we need to accept this is the bear market, and this is where the building out happens. They're just launching the network. You have one chance to launch this. Many networks launch with bugs constantly, and they have to fix them and rework them, or they set up 10-year design plans like ETH 2.0. Flare took the time and expanded the vision.
We do have a number of parties that have expressed an interest in building a relay system, and in fact have some really very interesting thoughts on how to do it. We're also looking at working with some of the existing relay networks that do exist out there. I think the FTSOs are a fantastic oracle. It's been a great success on Songbird, and I really think that if we can open it up to the broader crypto ecosystem, I think it's a potentially very interesting idea that applications all across the ecosystem could potentially be using the prices that are delivered by this really wonderfully decentralized oracle that is secured and really forms the Flare network. So were that to happen, certainly there would be great network effects. I think there would be network effects as well if people build bridges to and from Flare. So the more going outbound and the more coming inbound, the greater network effects there will be. But this allows people to either build on Flare to serve the Flare community itself, or it allows people to build essentially with Flare, using the oracle, using the state connector, to serve other communities. And to us, that's really the entire idea behind Connect Everything. Is we didn't want to just build a blockchain that was trying to compete with other layer 1 blockchains. We wanted to build a blockchain that serves as many blockchains as possible because it has really great utility.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I see in the design as well.
But I've been here for over 2 years and researching Flare before Flare even announced that they were Flare. And interviewed Hugo with Brad Kimes, and Brad and I talked about this back, 2 years ago about what they're doing. So he has some understanding of this, more so than others that I've seen. So knowing who has spent the time to understand this and research this, I'm not here for hype. This is just straight facts. Yeah. You need to understand the facts because a lot of people put out opinions, and speculation I think is good. It's healthy, but if it's based on facts. So speculating, for example, what's up with the F assets? What's up with layer cake assets? I'm not going to say everything is all hunky-dory and rosy and this is going to be the greatest network ever and we're going to be millionaires going to the moon. No, I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything or hype anything. I'm telling you, this is what they're building. This is how they're doing it. This is why they're doing it. This is the vision that they're putting forth for the community. So when we say they're just the initial builders of this. So I know we're stuck in the whole corporation mindset and the centralized entities. And even like looking at the Vitalics of Ethereum, the ripples of XRP, that will fade. And it's going to fade more and more. This is how I thought of FIP01 versus the original distribution. The original distribution is basically like a bunch of taco stands being set up for 36 months for people who have no interest in participating on Flare. They could care less about the token price. They might not even know what it is. Remember, this airdrop is taking place based on the snapshot prior to the case enforcement action by the SEC on Ripple and XRP. People could have sold right after that and had no idea Flare was going on. And if you distribute to these exchanges for 36 months, and here's another thing, there is a very big difference between distributing to an exchange and distributing to people indirectly in their wallet. Huge difference. If you distribute to somebody on an exchange, they could just turn right around and sell it and they have no interest. By distributing to somebody in their wallet, it means they're already on the network. It means they had to take the time to understand how to use the network, how to use the actual wallet, understand the FTSOs, understand the delegations. And, we need more people that are going to make content out there. We need more new people to make content instead of old people trying to just cover news and throw their 2 cents into things that really don't understand it. So I encourage anyone who's new or, hasn't made content before, go for it. Do it. Learn the information and put it out there based on facts. And it might not tell the greatest story, might not entertain most people, but you're going to be helping a lot of people. And the loud voices are usually the ones that aren't the ones that needed to be helped. It's the ones who don't speak that are helped. And it's great to see so many people who have understood all this way. But it's a process. What we're going through here is a process. And just going back to top off here with the mechanism design, there's automated and there's non-automated. And then there's also token design. So this is the monetary policy and financial incentives of the ecosystem and architecture. So having a token, that's the monetary system. Think of like the Fed. Now, there's different fields of study within economics and crypto and tokens. There's mechanism design, tokenomics, crypto economics, and financial cryptography. And then there's engineering side, which is token engineering and incentive engineering. So all these things can be built in to the system. So user activities then get a measurement apparatus and it mints. And there's a minting policy, which how many new tokens are minted based on that measurement apparatus. Then there's a distribution policy. What fraction of the newly minted tokens each actor gets? And I thought this diagram really was a good one. It happened that actually somebody actually used this in a blog. I made this though, like many months ago. I just covered over those two to include things for Flare. But this person wrote a great blog. I'm going to post a link below. I thought it's got a couple parts that are dated, but it's very good. So from the beginning, Flare has always said, this shouldn't come as news to anybody. Flare has always said network participation incentives and weak hands, that limiting excess liquidity, the structure of the distribution provides much larger rewards for participants that bring value and utility to the network. These can be participants that either already have Flare through the claim or participants that buy Flare from the people that decided to sell it. The token distribution structure means that percentage rewards for participating early are the highest they ever will be. So that's old, that comment right there. That's in the very beginning. It's still, this distribution though, changes and amplifies it because it takes from those who are not going to participate. They lose the 36-month distribution, and that distribution then gets distributed to those who are participating. So we're taking value that would come out and be a negative externality. It would consistently cause sell pressure. This is the other part of FIP01. If we do not switch to FIP01, we would, no dApps, no developers would come in. So this whole trusting and lying to the community, what? It's the opposite, actually. It's not a trust thing. They're the designers of the network for 5 years. 18 months ago, they told us, Hugo said, we're going to look and observe, and the distribution might change. So to say it broke trust, it's a community vote with a DAO governance. What would isolate us is if you didn't do anything, if it just stayed the same, because what dApp developer or other even members from the community not receiving the airdrop, the XRP community, and other communities would want to come in to an ecosystem where for 36 months, you have people receiving a token who are just dumping every month in the market. And you can't do anything about it. And they can't receive that. So they want to participate and want to bring value, but they can't earn that distribution. Instead, it's going to people who've done nothing. And now they dump every month. Some people think they have a right or this entitlement or they're prima donna. Well, hit the road. The network's not for you. This is behavioral economics. It's what the networks are designed to do. It's how you drive more value and a core foundation of people who want to be there and who want to participate. And you remove the focus on exchanges and sell pressure. And the last thing here is creating these roles for institutions, enterprises, bigger whales. So instead of the whales coming in just to manipulate and do their thing, they now have a role to play. They can be agents and utilize their FLR as collateral. FLR will earn them Bitcoin and XRP and external currencies. That is what some people missed completely, that there's an internal economy and an external. And these two core protocols, Layer Cake and F-Assets, are being designed to utilize Flare at the heart of it as collateral.
And so Flare's tokens used really for two things. And we have an internal and we have an external economy. So the internal economy is what I said, is that's FTSO staking and the stake connector. And this is rewarded in either Flare or Songbird, depending on which network you're in. If you want to think about that, that is a reapportionment of value from people that are either too lazy to stake or are staking badly. And that flows to people who are staking well. So this is a redistribution of value internally. And really, if you want to think about why do we want to do that, it then allows, if you then hold those tokens, you can then earn value in the underlying tokens that are being bridged to Flare. So you earn fees in XRP, in Litecoin, in Stellar, in Algo. And so the participation over here is essentially the shuffling of the rights to earn fees for bridging those tokens. And that's really the utility, like the economic utility of the token. Shuffling of the rights to earn fees for bridging those tokens. And that's really the utility, like the economic utility of the token. So it's a bit like a global economy, whereby the internal economy dictates how much of a share of the total earnings from abroad you get. And the value. The internal economy dictates how much of a share of the total earnings from abroad you get.
And that collateral then earns while it's being used as collateral. And that's very important. It does that because you could do self-repaying loans with this. You could create more composability. You can also crowdfund projects. So these streams of rewards that come out every 3.5 days and the monthly can be directed to different accounts you could send them. And that's why there's an executor in your personal delegation account, which is attached to your main account. At the Flare portal, you'll see personal delegation account. That is like a vault attached to your main account. And it only could go to your main account, but it automatically wraps them and claims them in that account. But you could also have an executor. Say you have a loan that you took out, you borrowed against whatever asset it is. It doesn't even have to be FLR. And you wanted to consistently pay it down every epoch. It will take 10% of your FTSO rewards and just pay down that loan. That's the composability we're talking about here in the future. This is what this opens up by having these things. And they're not so obvious on the surface. And the utility is now the distribution is attached to the token and not attached to the account. Because now people have to work to provide something that's going to earn them the distribution. So that is just the basic core of just common sense. It's common sense economics. Let's put it there. So these are the things that Flare built in. It might not be 100% perfect, but it's built to drive adoption, a vision, and things have to be changed because you get one chance to launch this. One, they built in a governance that has an incentive pool, 20 billion FLR that we manage, the community. Community is going to be has a lower house of governance even, and a canary network we got too. The platforms and the networks and the dApps really that are able to provide the compliant services of KYC and the data that they need and the security, the robustness, the resiliency, and the scalability to be able to build on and tap into will see massive value roll into them. And as these layer ones become networks of networks, there'll be different layers. So these turn into big money infrastructures. There's a great paper, it's like 300 pages long, on money infrastructures. And it talks all about Ripple XRP, but it's the infrastructure that the value is accruing through. In the protocol, HTTP couldn't have value accrue to it. That's what these tokens kind of are. They can be used as currency. They can be used as a commodity. You have a technical ownership stake in the network. You know, call it whatever you want. You have a vested ownership stake. You have governance, and you're receiving a part of the inflation. So inflation is not just, just straight inflation rate. Who is that inflation going to? Like the Fed Reserve has inflation and the US dollar, but who's getting the inflation? That's not the everyday people. That's the difference. If the inflation comes out and it goes to those people who are actually impacting and bringing utility and value to the network, then it's going to drive more value into the network.
I see it is criticism of inflation of a fiat currency is very legitimate. But that's because we don't really control that inflation. You know, we don't control the Fed. We don't control the Bank of England. We don't get to set the how many essentially new dollar tokens are put into existence. You know, we have no rights over that. Whereas with Flare, or I'm sure with many other protocols, you know, the token acts as a governance token, and the community can make governance proposals and vote on them as to the inflation rate. And I think really that's, so I don't think being a deflationary coin is totally necessary. But I do think giving people control over inflation is a completely different thing that's never been essentially enabled in existing economic systems.
You know, we really thank the community for doing that, for coming with us on this journey, and it has been a journey, and it will be a long journey going forward, hopefully a very exciting one. And, you know, one of the first things that was tested on Songbird was the FTSO, and we're now at 80 data providers on the FTSO, if not more. It's been providing prices every 3 minutes since about September 2001. It's highly accurate, and it's, we think, one of the most decentralized oracles in the space. So we're really excited by that, and that shows the power of Flare's community. That, you know, the decentralization of the FTSO is really, really important for quality data delivery. And I think when we looked last, we think about 60% of the people that received Songbird tokens are delegating those tokens. And by any metric in our industry, in blockchain, that is absolutely huge. And so we've achieved really great decentralization on Songbird, and we've already got about 80 data providers onboarded onto Flare.